This is the Men's Room podcast, where relief is your duty and your innate self is welcome. I'm your host, as always, Ish Mendoza, and I'm very fortunate you stopped by. And what an episode we have in store for you all today. We are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only host of the Central Valley podcast, Micah Diele. And what a great conversation. I'm really happy that Micah had a chance to stop by the studio. We're talking all things Central Valley and all things in general, life and parenthood and just living in the Central Valley and the woes and the celebrations and wins that we get to enjoy together. Follow the Central Valley podcast online. If you search for the Central Valley podcast, you're likely going to find the first results. That's Micah's show. And if you don't know Micah already, you should and you will. And as always, I'm going to summon you all to engage with this podcast, the Men's Room podcast, by sharing, liking, subscribing, commenting. Any way you can engage with the podcast helps the algorithm. And I'm forever grateful for you all supporting the show as it is already. And if this is your very first time, welcome. So without further ado, let's get into it. Thanks for coming all the way, man.
Dude, no problem. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. I have to admit, you're the white whale that I've been trying to catch.
Yeah, I'm out there.
And not
you're
because
like that effing guy.
Not because you're Caucasian.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, I'm a little darker than most white people, but yeah, I am white. I'm majority white.
Mike, I've been listening to your content for quite some time now, and so I'm super happy to get to pick your brain a little bit and,
cool.
Shoot the shit and banter and all that.
That's what this is the best part about podcasting is the actual conversation, and like through all the editing, I have to remind myself that like I do enjoy this, but sometimes get so wrapped up. Like people don't believe me when I say that, like with me and Duffy, when we edit a podcast, they're like, how much work goes into it? And they see a 2-hour long conversation and they're like, that looks fun. I want to do it. But there's so much back end stuff that people don't realize, and people like don't believe me when I'm like, dude, one podcast can take me and Duffy 40 hours of work. Like, how's that even possible? One, I'm like, well, dude, editing the video, editing the sound, and then we try to do so many promos too to make it like that. That's kind of what we got known for via our Instagram, and I always tell people it's like our Instagram page versus like. I feel like our podcast listeners is so different. You know what I mean? We have listeners, and like I always tell people, I think we have like maybe from like 1 to 3,000 listeners an episode. Which is great, and that's like at the end. It's not like 1 to 3,000 off the bat. You know what I mean? It's like accumulatively after a year, maybe it's like that per episode. But it's just like so funny to me, like how much work goes into it, right. And like everyone's like, you're just talking. I'm like, you're right. We are just talking, but there's also so much back end work.
Yeah, that's.
And how has that been for you?
That's been the toughest lesson to learn. I mean, number one, I've never experimented with even video editing before this, and so this has kind of been my.
Oh yeah.
Aside from like iMovie little clips,
Yeah, little things. Yeah.
But actually purchasing a software and actually doing the thing,
investing the money that like it's a lot. I mean, dude, these microphones. We don't have these microphones for a reason, man.
Well, thankfully, because I
do music, right?
I do music, and then I pieced these out because I had one already.
Oh, okay.
And so I bought it down the line.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It wasn't like a huge like full expenditure. Like what most people when they invest in starting a podcast, they buy everything up front.
Yeah. You already had a little bits of things already. Yeah. It was just adding few things that you didn't know you needed.
For sure.
And then finding a whole bunch that
what I struggle with most is the video side of things.
Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with lighting and angles and all that stuff. So that's where I'm kind of experimenting, taking YouTube university.
Oh, dude, that's how I learned like anything I do with filmmaking, video, photo. That and then other people that are knowledgeable about it, but no formal schooling on it. You know what I mean? Same thing, but like I got into video in 2019, video photo in 2019, but like I started the podcast in 2021, so I was still like fresh learning stuff. So it's all just life's just a learning process.
Yeah. But yeah, so many people I've encountered this, and this was kind of the start of the idea, the concept of a podcast in general was from conversations. Everybody has that same concept of like, let's start a podcast, let's do a podcast.
Yeah.
But it's more than just the sitting around and talking part,
Yeah.
It's that's where it becomes, very, very strategic, and you have to kind of like have a stomach for that, I think, more than anything, because I mean, if I'm not hiring somebody out, because then it's like, well, what's the point if, I'm just spending every single month that, as I'm growing, as things are.
Yeah. And you want to learn the process, and maybe that happens down the line, even for me, you know what I mean? So we're almost at episode 100. We haven't filmed it yet, but like, that's like where I'm like, oh wow, like we've been doing this, and the first like 50 episodes probably happened within like a year and a half or something, and then the next 50 took like 2 years. It feels like, you know what I mean, maybe more, because like we used to do 3-4 a month, then we made it 3. We used to do 4 a month, and then we're like, let's make it down to 3. Then this year, I had a kid, and Duffy just got married, and it's just time consuming. And I was like, hey, like no one's making us do X amount per month. Like let's just do 2 a month. It allows us to have at least 2 weeks to work on episodes in between, because we do this thing where we record 5-6 episodes. Yeah. We bunch record them, and then we're gonna get ahead, we're gonna edit them, and then like life happens, and you're like, all right, I haven't edited the one that comes out next, but here we are.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same thing for so I think I'm at episode 16 release right now. I think yours is going to be episode 20, which is
so you have
it commemorates actually. So I heard your story on someone else's podcast. I had the last episode that I had is a guy, Jose Cruz.
Yeah, I was on his podcast. Still here. Shout out to you, Jose. He says something Native American. I forget what he calls himself. your favorite Native American. Yeah.
And so when I heard you talk about the idea and the concept of seasons.
Oh yeah.
I actually immediately adopted that concept, because I don't want to get so burnt out with this.
Yeah.
That it became something that's like I don't look forward to. And I can easily quit, I think, at a point if I feel burned out.
Yeah.
Is that kind of where you?
Yeah, because we were just like going nonstop for the first year, or like February to December, and then we're like, I was like, oh, we'll take a break, and we took like a 1 month break, and then we started that next year again, and it was just like that year, like I was burned out from the podcast, burned out from video, because like I just jumped into 2021 is when I became full-time like doing video and stuff, because I was gonna be a teacher. Long story short, like I was a substitute, and so I would substitute. And
make the long story long.
Yeah, I guess. But so how I got into video is there was a competition online by this brand. It was like, make a video about your dream job. Okay. I hadn't touched a camera, nothing like that. My buddy Jimmy was very involved with photography and videography, and I was like, hey, like let's do this video together. Will you help me? And so like we made a video about what we thought our dream job was, and that was like doing like a nature show. You know what I mean? At the time, like I was hiking all the time and stuff, and even like I always had the idea to do a podcast, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna call it like Trail Talks or something like that, because I was like into hiking. And then
not trail mix.
Yeah, exactly. And so we linked up, did this really cool video, and ended up not winning it. And our video was for sure better than the person who won it. So it was just very like it was just like we were like we're gonna win this. And then me and him like tried to, and then basically he was like my mentor in the sense of learning all the stuff about cameras.
I got you.
So like what lenses to buy, how to shoot, how to edit, those things. I was just like doing stuff with him for like a solid 2 years. And then basically 2021 happened, and I was like, all right, if I want to make this viable, if I want to actually do this, I think in 2019 I was 26, and that was at the first point where I was like, I got to do like what I want. And I was always into filmmaking a little bit. Like in high school, me and my friends run around with the camera, classic, just like film anything. And then me and my buddy Josh, do you remember the flip cameras? Yeah. So that was like our first one, and we would like make one video a week with it, with like whole long storylines and all this stuff, and we'd post them, and we'd force ourselves. It was like 12 weeks in a row, and like we'd have weeks where me and him were just arguing, like we're not even having fun anymore, man. Like I remember we're making up songs.
I remember back in the day, those flip camera. I had an LG V6100 I believe it was, and it basically, like as it incrementally got greater, it's like now in 4 megapixels.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. It's like it shoots in 240p. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So that's how like I kind of got into it. And then afterwards, like I did tell my mom and dad, like, I want to do video, but my sister had just like, long story short, like she was going to a fashion institute and decided not to go there. So I felt like my parents were like, oh, like arts isn't where it's at or something. And like, I don't hold it against them or anything, because they're like looking out for what's best for me. Yeah. And then it's just funny that like 8 years later, I like circle back to it. And, you know, and that it wasn't until like I was 26, I was like, wait, what do I want? Because I've been like telling people I'm going to be a teacher because it sounds good. You know, go to family functions. Like, what are you doing? Going to school to be a teacher. They're like, have you been? Dude, I went to school from 18 to 25. Like so enough to like have a master's degree, but I just got a bachelor's in my AA. But I had a fun process along the way, you know. And I was never taking life too seriously, and I never wanted to for a long time, because it was just that part of your life's only going to last so long, and I made sure it lasted, you know, a good while, and then. And I mean, I still have a great time, you know what I mean? But 26 was like, what do I want? What does Micah want to do?
Right.
And that's when like the dream job thing happened. We did that. And then I was like, okay, I bought my first camera, spent like $700. I thought that was expensive then. And now I'm like, any camera I want now is like $4,000. I'm like, oh man.
Is chump change.
Yeah, exactly. But that was a big, like, cause I'm spending money that I'm not making anything with this. You know what I mean? Like this is all just because I'm taking a bet on myself. Right. And then 2021 happened. Started getting like real estate gigs and just enough gigs to like, I'm like, okay, I'm making just as much as I did when I was substituting, you know? So if I can just keep going this, and I would still substitute, and I would substitute, walk in and be like, what's up guys, Mr. Diele, assignments on the board, just pretend to be working. That's like my go-to thing is like, hey, just pretend to be working. And generally if you show high school kids that like you care less than them, they're like, oh, okay. Like I can pretend, you know, that's what the kids are thinking. That's what I feel like. And so I would just like edit my photos, edit video. And a lot of stuff was personal projects in the beginning. Yeah. And then it just transformed. Now it's like, I don't do enough personal projects. I have all this footage I've recorded that I haven't edited because I'm too busy doing client stuff, which is a blessing. But it's also like, I'm trying to readjust to try to actually schedule in my stuff too, you know? But I don't know exactly what was the question, but just telling the long story short, it's like how I got into video was kind of like that. Yeah. And saying yes to everything. Someone's like, can you do a wedding? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I've been doing it for 6 months. I'm clearly not qualified. Like they know, you know what I mean? But I would just say yes to everything, and everyone says niche down. Everyone's like niche down, niche down, niche down. One thing I never did was niche down. And
what does that mean?
And so it's like, so when you're in video, it's like you should pick if you're going to do family portraits. You should pick if you're going to do weddings. You should pick if you want to do real estate, to do commercial work, to do, you know what I mean? And I just kept, and I just was like, no, because like then I'm like, I felt like there's so many things like from real estate. I learned like how to do establishing shots places, how to show off like the location of things. And that translates to when you're doing, you know, work, if you're doing like a little mini documentary about somebody, you're still using those same things. Same thing with like doing interviews well for documentaries. That teaches you how to do like interviews well for like commercial work, you know? So I feel like there's so many crossovers on ways to learn, you know what I mean? Right. Yeah. And so I just never niched down. And now I'm getting to the point where I say no to things I for sure don't want to do. You know what I mean? It's like someone's like, can you record my kid's birthday? I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to spend my Saturday filming. Sorry, you know what I mean? But it's just like, I've been able to get to a point. And one thing the podcast did that I never thought, I thought it was, I do podcast and I do photo and video, and it's not related at all. That was my idea. But one thing the podcast do, it's like a walking billboard for myself. You know what I mean? So it's been a blessing because with its growth over the last like 4 years, I've been able to like have a full-time job doing this. And that's something that if you would have told me that in 2019, I would be like, yeah, maybe by 2024 I'll do it, you know? But I was a big proponent of like picking something up and then putting it down. You know what I mean? Like right. I get frustrated with video games. I get frustrated with a level. I just won't play it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like the videotape type of person either, but like that's how I was with a lot of things in my life until video. And I was like, picked it up and like, I haven't put it down. And so it's a blessing.
It's an interesting concept, I think, because you're doing something that not necessarily video per se, but you're doing something that a lot of people seek out in their lives, and that's doing something fulfilling for a career and being able to have that actually pay the bills, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas most people will, you know, work so they can support this hobby. You're doing,
Yeah.
you know, that you're doing the hobby that you're kind of doing, so
Yeah.
it's enjoyable, you know.
Yeah, my wife always is like, "You got to have so much fun at work." I'm like, "Yes, I do." Like because like it's cool because I've like manifested this thing that like it's like I got to go film promos and drink beer and hang out with people, and like that's like me going to work sometimes, you know. But it's also sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's not as glamorous. It's
Right.
like it's like I had this fairy tale in my mind of like what it was going to be like. Oh, so cool working for yourself. But the things that you don't realize, because like if you don't make an action for it, you fantasize like it's going to be this amazing thing. And it is amazing, but it's also I'm my boss, I'm my editor, I'm my videographer, I'm my administrative assistant, I'm my bookkeeper, you know what I mean? Like all these other roles that you have to realize through the process that I love that I'm doing it, but it's like the past year and a half is me like, how do I actually structure this so it's not stressful? You know what I mean? Because I would just sit there and zone out for like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I'd be like so stressed at everything that I'm not present when I'm not doing something. And there's always something you could be doing. So it's just trying to schedule that out that I have a hard time with.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure the intricacies, everything it becomes work at a certain point and it becomes a job. You know?
Exactly.
And you got to worry about like taxes and everything like that too. You know, like if you want to make it legit and you like want to make a career out of it instead of just like, you know, side hustling or whatever, because you can say, hey, make it all cash payment. Or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But you know, if you want to do something and you know, now that you're a dad, I'm sure that's another layer of stuff that you have to consider. You know,
Not as much time as I had before.
Right. You know, and just the time aspect of it is huge, but like the logistics aspect of it is equally as probably like, you know, mundane and nuanced. You know?
Yeah.
So, speaking of which, I wanted to talk about your fatherhood now. You know, so how old is your daughter now?
She's like 6.5 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just like the perfect fun age. Dude, we were at the zoo together at the same time. I remember you telling me that like, oh, I can't do it that day because I'm going on a field trip with my son to the zoo. But like that was like a month ago or something.
Yeah.
And then at spur of the moment, my wife was like, hey, like you want to go to the zoo? I'm like, oh, yeah. And she's like at the age where she's like laughing and giggling at things. So we're like, oh yeah, let's like take her. Like, cause you can like point to stuff and she's just like, she gets excited when she sees a cat, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, let's go. But that was so funny.
A tiger is a big cat.
Yeah, exactly. Except the tigers were just laying down. They're pretty boring when we were there. But the elephants and rhinos are pretty cool though.
Yeah, those are. I think they usually like they'll do certain hours. I mean, humble brag, but we're season pass holders.
Oh shit, man.
But we so we go often and stuff too. My son is very like, you know, he's got his path. He's very particular about the zoo. He knows where he wants to go, what he wants to do and everything at the time. And so for the field trip, he was kind of like not having as a good of a time as he was.
Because he wanted to go do what he wanted to do and not what everyone, the classes were doing.
Yeah. He's like, what about the red foxes or the red wolves?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I was looking at those things. I was like, is that a coyote?
Yeah, it looks like a dog, really.
Yeah, because me and my wife were in Yosemite and we were like, going on a walk with, it was like our two dogs and our daughter, and we're wearing her. And like all of a sudden, like this coyote comes up and like my wife's still like, my fight or flight is flight, dude. I'm like backing up with these dogs. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, we got to get out of here. And she's like, no, we got to like make loud noises and stuff. And she was just like, you're going to leave me like with our daughter, like, and you have the two dogs. I was like, yeah. And the coyote was like walking up to the dogs, like hella interested, but it looks identical to that red wolf or whatever it is.
So yeah, when we were there, he didn't have as good of a time and stuff too, but yeah, fatherhood is an interesting thing. You know, you're at the age, she's probably at the super peak baby cuteness level.
Yeah.
You know, like the extra baby fat.
Yeah, exactly. And then like just giggles all the time. If I just like, I like always bite her stomach and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah. And my wife gets mad because she like, I'll just see her and she's like, like hella happy. My wife's like, this baby's with me all day. As soon as she sees you, she just like can't stop. Like that.
Yeah, man. What's been something that you've seen in yourself like shift, you know, in fatherhood versus, you know, when before you even maybe were even married or you know, together in a relationship with a partner at the time, what have been kind of the historical like differences of what you've seen in yourself, you know?
Yeah, I think the first thing that like when my daughter was born, it's just like it makes you think about your childhood a lot more than I would have ever thought.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
I think about like, 'cause in my body, my daughter does look like me a good amount too, but like, I always think about like what my parents did for me when I was a baby, because it's like
Right.
she's never gonna remember these memories. Like when you're 1 to 3, like you might have one or two maybe on the on a lot side, you know what I mean? But it's like all these memories are for like us, you know what I mean? And it's like the memories your parents had with you, and like you don't remember them taking care of you like this, but like you're doing like everything in your power to take care of this little baby. And
Yeah.
it's just like that's what it's made me think about, is like my parents and then me as a kid too. And that's something that I never thought was like that I would think about, you know. It just
Yeah.
like it, because you hear everybody like, oh, like you try to get ask advice for people, and like I feel like for a dad, it's like for me, until the baby was born, it was not, I mean, it was real, but it wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like with the wife or your girlfriend, like they're living with the baby inside of them for so long that like their maternal instincts are kicking in way more. And
They're
then,
already bonded.
yeah, they're already bonded. Then when it comes to the dad, it's like you're trying to be like, am I in this a lot, or am I in this enough, or like what am I doing? And then I feel like as soon as the baby's born, you're like, okay, like that's when it hits for the dad. And it's not like the hurdles, like of course, like sleep in the first like couple weeks was crazy, just like surviving. You're just in survival mode. You're trying to figure everything out, and it's just having time. Like I'm lucky that my wife's staying home with the baby, and that's just because sometimes it's like we look at the prices of childcare, and I'm like, I mean, there's no point for you to go to work for us to pay childcare with that check. You know what I mean?
It's real.
And we don't have like my mom still works, her mom still works. We don't have somebody we can like. There's no grandma or anything that can like come and just watch the baby. You know what I mean? So it's just like adjusting to that whole thing, and then adjusting me and my wife. Like it's like you have to date your wife again, honestly, because you don't get that one-on-one time that you used to have, and if you do get it, like 5 minutes in, it's interrupted, you know. And so it's just learning that, and that's the stage me and my wife are at right now, where it's like, man, we gotta like, we like each other, you know what I mean? But just how to get back into like me and her doing things, and then like I do a lot of things for myself, you know what I mean? The sense of like the podcast and my job, and it's like it's all crossed over and combined with, it's like having it looks like I'm having the best time all the time, you know what I mean? But it's still like there's a back end of work that when I'm sitting there editing for 5 days in a row that no one sees as well, you know what I mean? So it's just trying to figure out time management is the craziest thing.
Yeah, for sure.
What real quick though, sorry, what did you how did you find me, like Central Valley Podcast? That like, do you remember like what video or how you even stumbled across?
So actually, my wife was she has been following the Instagram page. I only started the Instagram account that I have right now for the podcast. And so before, I suck at social media.
Oh, okay,
like,
gotcha.
I actually really hate it too. I hate like posting also, and you know, I enjoy like the quick, you know, things like stories and reels. And stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like aside from like, I'm not good with like marketing and everything like that. So I've asked my wife, like, you know, what she's like, oh, hey, are you following Central Valley Podcast? I was like, no, what is that? You know? And then I just like started like every single page.
How long ago? Do you know how long ago it was? Out of curiosity, I was trying to think like around when.
Maybe probably rounding up a year ago, because that's when I started the Instagram account. It was maybe a couple weeks in when I found.
Okay, gotcha.
Anyway, so I would say maybe like September.
Oh,
year
okay,
or so.
gotcha.
Yeah, around that time. So I think you were already off.
Yeah, we had just finished the last season.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha.
you know, I was just, you know, really into that. But, you know, you've got some iconic, like, you know, things that have gone viral and stuff.
Yeah, it's just random little videos that just like go.
Like
and
the cum trees.
Yeah, dude, the cum trees are so funny. That, and then like shit Central Valley people say, and like just random stuff. You know, that's the thing. Like I like to make fun of the area too. Like people, well, you don't represent the Central Valley. Like I have haters now. It's so annoying too. It's like, and it just like, whatever. I don't need to talk about them, but like, it just like social media is this thing that I struggle with, because like obviously it's helped. Like the growth of the podcast has like been completely organic and just slow over time. Like it took us like a year and a half, 2 years to get to 5,000 subscribers, and then 5,000 subscribers, 5,000 followers, and then from like 5,000 to 20,000, that was literally probably within like 6 to 8 months. Like it just exponential, and we just kept on hitting, and like we were in people's algorithms and stuff, and then like randomly we just recently like it's been like dead in our algorithm, and like it just hit or miss. But it's so I don't know, it's something seems to be different about it, because for a while, like even if I posted like a random video, it would get like 700 likes or something. Like we were just like in it, and then all of a sudden like I'd start posting videos and it's like 100 likes, and like which like I'm not trying to say that that's not, but like when it says it only got to 1,500 of my followers, like when I look at the insights, I'm like, okay, if I have quote 26,000 followers, I'm not asking for 20,000 to see it. I'm asking for like maybe 5,000 to see, you know what I mean? Just like that stuff.
Yeah.
And so being in my head about it though, because I look at my old promos and it's like some of them I loved, and then I look, I'm like, oh, that didn't do that well either. But it's just the dopamine rush of likes and that stuff. That's
Right.
And then just the time sucking of like scrolling that you just get in.
Yeah, for sure. And then that's exactly it too. It's a measure. It's keeping up with the Joneses in a lot of ways, because comparison is the thief of joy, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I compare the good ones to the ones that don't perform well and stuff like that.
It's hard not to do that though, because you want to hone your craft. You want to see what successful people are doing. And then when you see like, oh, I'm doing that better, or something in your opinion, or even if to say like, I never thought of doing that. I would never do something like that. Everything's about comparison, Analytics are literally like just data around that.
About comparing things. Yeah. Yeah, that's true, dude. Yeah, so just trying to get in my own head sometimes, because it's a hard world. Like it's first world problems are honestly like they're a lot of mental problems, I feel like. You know what I mean? When social media it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I hate it, but it's a necessary tool in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wouldn't be where I am without it either.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like Instagram and Facebook are pretty much. I mean, I have a Twitter page, but it's pretty dead.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I have a Twitter page, or X, whatever you want to call it, but I haven't posted anything in like over a year or 2 years.
Yeah, I just did it so it it has an additional social media icon that I can add to the website.
Yeah.
But so I've been pretty active most on Instagram too, but I feel like our listenership has been higher than our actual like Instagram followers as well too.
Yeah, and so a lot of people it's flip flop. Yeah, I know, and that's what I'm like. Sometimes I would rather have that.
Yeah. I mean, but it's a good and a bad thing. My mom like always talks about like the episodes that I record. Or whatever, my dad would say like, hey, you said so. I won't dig into the specifics.
No, you're good.
My dad's a pastor, and so a lot of the stuff I say is not up to
a code.
Yeah, up to par for him.
Yeah.
But so he'll say things about like, because I'm real, and I was like, I talk about my like journey through like having grown up in faith, and then like me turning atheist to like spiritual and all this like journey that I've gone into, and he's like, I never knew you stop believing in God, or I was like, well so it's like I was like, I don't really share those kind of things with you, Dad, because it's like it's hard to talk about.
It's a hard conversation to have.
But so anyway, he calls me on this kind of stuff because I was like, all right, thanks for listening, Dad. So
yeah. Dude, my parents listen. Like my parents are my biggest fans, honestly, and it's cool because they're like, oh, great episode. Like they'll listen like the day of it comes out and stuff, and so like it's awesome. You know what I mean? My parents are like, when they recommend it to people, like, hey, he does say fuck a lot. Okay, we're just like, because like they're trying to recommend it to church people, and they're like, yeah, that one's good, but if you listen to some other ones, just watch out because he has a dirty mouth.
Yeah, no.
I was raised in faith too, though. Like literally since I was born till like 18, youth group, just like church. We go to church like Bible study so many times a week. That's like my core group of friends. Is like I met them there.
Yeah. It's a good and bad thing because it builds community, I think, but it also like, I mean, there's a bunch of stigmas around it, it just kind of, I had the bad experience because I grew up in such a very strict conservative church. And so I was bitter to that upbringing, so I wasn't like, maybe if I grew up in like a cool, like Hillsongy type of church, different perspective of it. But like I grew up in a very like, like speaking in tongues kind of church.
Oh, dang. That's like,
so like deep in like, culty. And so
I know it's not culty, but I know what you mean though. It's like a hardcore, more of a hardcore
lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
Lifestyle, And so growing up in that made me bitter about.
And it pushes you like sometimes when that's all you just resent it when you're growing up, and like
kind of like the Central Valley.
Yeah, exactly like the Central Valley and how people grow like to hate it. You know what I mean? And it's not so much the place, it's more of your environment
Right.
more than anything.
And your perspective.
Yeah,
you know?
perspective's everything.
Because I now living in Fresno, it's the big boy of the Central Valley.
Yeah, it really is, dude. When I go to downtown Fresno, I'm like, oh yeah, it is a big city compared to like Merced and Modesto and stuff.
But I mean, it's Central Valley nonetheless.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly.
Downtown sucks. You know, downtown Fresno sucks. You know,
I'm sure it's better than you give it credit for. Well, I'm saying you got to think like, dude. You think downtown Fresno sucks. If you go to Merced, you're like, what is this? You know what I mean?
See, I disagree because I think the smaller towns have like more a quaint feel, and there's actually like movement downtown. Fresno has so many uninhabited places, so like buildings are just abandoned, and they're really cool, like nice architecture buildings. And I'm like, man, I really wish somebody would buy this and do something well.
Yeah, yeah. And that, I mean, eventually, but yeah, I mean, Merced's the same way in the sense of like, Merced's cool. Like, it does feel like a cool, like, small town. It has that vibe, even though it's not so small. And the architecture in Merced, I love, like the different buildings. There's some cool random buildings it's awesome. But on the flip side, sometimes I don't like that. If you go downtown past 8 o'clock, you can't get anything to eat, bro. Sure. You know what I mean? It's like those things that are annoying where like, I know at least Fresno, like there's stuff open at least past 8. Like,
yeah.
So it's like those types of things that, and at the end of the day, I mean, they're all Central Valley type places.
Yeah. It's interesting because I almost feel that there's a separate, Fresno is a separator, the great divider in a lot of ways, because I got a good core group of friends in Bakersfield, and so Bakersfield
661 is that the area code, right?
661. Yeah.
I know that because I do the hashtag of it. Yeah. I'm like, I got to get some Bakersfield people on this podcast. Have you seen that Mexican group that they did They're like a Tex-Mexican group, and they recently just redid like one of Johnny Cash's songs, and it went viral. But okay, I'm not gonna know what their name is.
They're from Bakersfield.
They're from Bakersfield, and they're sick, dude. Like,
are those guys that do like mariachi style?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, but yeah,
the different genres.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
those people. Yeah. I just seen them, and I was like, man, those would be cool to get on the podcast.
Yeah, Bakersfield's a weird city because it's got a lot of like it's one of those like rich oil towns, so like there's some money coming through there, but and it's also had like some pretty iconic like Buck Owens, I think,
like cultural history behind it.
Yeah, they also have a pretty nice little downtown scene too, you know, like the Fox Theater.
So their theater looks identical to the Merced Theater. I was looking at it, like
just a little bit bigger, right?
Like, yeah, I've never actually been to the Fox Theater, but like I followed this one of the videographers over there, and he posted a photo of it. I'm like, dang, that looks identical to the Merced Theater. Like, at least very similar to the Merced Theater. Yeah, it's a dope little spot. I've never actually been in there. I've just seen it like with the doors open at some point, but I've never gone to like an event or something in there. I had tickets to this comedian, but he ended up canceling on the show. But so like, I'll get to it at some point. Yeah, yeah.
But I actually would like to do some sort of tour of all the local theaters or something to see either some show out of there and just kind of get a vibe of it. We have the Tower Theater,
yeah,
which is a pretty nice little venue and stuff. I was just there. I saw Adam Carolla.
Oh yeah, I know Adam Carolla. Yeah,
podcast OG. But I saw Adam Carolla there at the Tower Theater too. But yeah, I'd like to do like a little. I've never. What's the Merced Theater called?
I think it's called Merced Theater. Yeah, Main Place Theater, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it just says Merced on it, so I just call it the Merced Theater.
That little
point at the top of it, and it's just like higher than all the other buildings in Merced, because Merced's like, you go over 3 stories, there's nothing else. Like there's a few buildings that are over 3 stories, but like Fresno, you go downtown, you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we got 10 stories. It's
yeah, but it seems like skyscrapers compared to where we're at.
Yeah, so nothing like the Sears Tower or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But I feel like Fresno's the great divider because there's almost a cultural shift in. So we have in the Central Valley in Fresno, we're kind of split with like fandom, and that's kind of the gauge of where I think people are, like NorCal versus SoCal.
Yeah.
So like you can either be a Dodgers fan or a Giants fan here.
Yeah.
And it's Bakersfield's like they're all Dodgers fans.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Modesto is like all Giants.
Yeah.
And so Fresno's like it's a toss up, you know.
Yeah, I think anyone in the Central Valley does have a lot of giant Dodger fans. I feel like wherever you're from, just because like, and you're in California, it's like. Nobody likes the Padres. I'm sorry. Like what?
The Angels.
Yeah. Shut up, dude. You don't like them. It's Dodgers or Giants, pretty much. That's what it feels like. But the thing I like about the Central Valley is that like whether you're from Bakersfield, Fresno, Merced, Modesto. I claim Sacramento. They like to say they're NorCal. I get it. But you're still 6 hours from like the border.
They're not Bay Area.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And like your childhood is closer to my childhood than like if you lived in the Bay, than if you lived in LA, than if you lived like way in NorCal. Like, you know what I mean? That's why
they get triple digits there too.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're that's the you like, because quote Fresno is like the biggest city in the Central Valley, but I claim Sacramento. I'm like, that's even like, it just like they got a basketball team. That's cool.
Yeah, it's the biggest cultural hub. I
Yeah,
think.
exactly.
They've got a lot of. I think they're metro because like technically the city limits of Fresno is the most populated,
Mm-hmm.
but Sacramento is like like urban area, like
Mm-hmm.
little metro.
Like probably like condensed to a good amount.
Like, you know, like the surrounding cities like Rockland and I forget the other like
Roseville.
Roseville.
Yeah.
So like all those cities or whatever, that accounts for like almost 1 million more than Fresno. So like the surrounding areas will have a bigger population.
Yeah.
Too, but so it's just the actual city limits that they claim or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think Sacramento I lived there for about a year. It's a dope city, man.
It's cool.
There's a lot to do there, a lot to see,
and I like that it really feels chill still. Like it's big city vibes, but like you go off the street, like right by Main Street, and there's just like all these normal houses that are just feel like it's not like a rush busy city. You know what I mean? Like like a 5 o'clock. I'm sure there's traffic. You know what I mean? But like not so much to where like every street you go on, it's overwhelming.
Yeah. No, it is, especially like you know, on the outside, traveling into and out of a city, you can tell a lot about it.
Yeah.
So especially because most people will go into that area to work, and then they go back to the suburbs or whatever too.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Central Valley, I want to know your perspective of having grown up here and stay here. I'll caveat with this. So I read this book by Malcolm Gladwell. It's called David and Goliath. And basically there's the concept of like the underdog seems like always the one in that story of David and Goliath. It breaks it down that David was actually not the underdog, but he was at an advantage, and so basically there's even a concept that he goes down and breaks down different individual stories, and it spoke to me a lot because at the time I was really not wanting to come back to Fresno.
You were in Sacramento at the time?
I was in Sacramento at the time, but I bounced around everywhere. I lived in San Jose, I worked in San Francisco, I lived in Phoenix, and so I didn't intend to. It's a long story, but I didn't intend to be back in Fresno.
Yeah.
My mom, I came back temporarily. My mom was going through some health issues. She's doing great now. But I was like, all right, I'll come back to Fresno for a year. I was working remotely.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm gonna be back in Fresno for a year, and then we'll see where the sky, the wind blows and takes me. But I didn't.
It parked you.
Yeah. And then so when I came back to Fresno about a month into it, I met my wife, and
rest is history, basically.
Planted roots, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I say that to say that is a lot of people have that mentality of just like, I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to move. But this story was the concept was you can either be a little fish in a big pond and kind of get swept away by the glamour of a big city or lots of opportunity elsewhere, or you can be a seemingly big fish in a little pond and you make more of a splash that way.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the way I like to live. I actually also like to promote it. And if I'm not this great, talented guy that can do, big things or whatever, but I think that it's more impactful. Anything that I can do to help uplift the area too. But I'm curious about your take on the Central Valley.
Yeah,
Do you have that sort of mentality too?
Yeah. Definitely parts of it. But yeah, so I mean, growing up, I think, like you're saying, to me, the Central Valley isn't like, it's so much more relatable than just the Central Valley. It's anywhere anybody grows up, you like maybe excluding like San Diego, a couple places that are beautiful as is, you know what I mean? But generally people grow up, they resent kind of where they're from, or they've been there all their life, so they just want to get out. Like, I just can't wait to move away. I can't wait to move away, whether that's San Francisco, whether they're the Central Valley, whether it's some other big city. And some people just love where they're at. That's cool too. But to me, it was just like, when I first started like wanting to do a podcast and like how the Central Valley podcast came to be, it used to be called Real Talk and Whatnot. That was like the first name of it for like the first like 35 episodes, 40 episodes. But I just knew that like I had an idea. I want to do a podcast. I don't know where it's going to take me, but I just want to do it. And so I sat down, recorded like 5 episodes, and then I like kind of reflected like, what do I want it to be about? I'm like, I kind of want to highlight the area because it gets a bad rep, and like that was the gist of my idea of it, you know. And then it just kind of became this thing where like I got the handle Central Valley Podcast online, and I was like, that makes more sense on like what the podcast is about. Real talk and whatnot. I think it's a great name, but you don't know what it's about. Like you're like, what is this? And Central Valley Podcast is just short, sweet, to the point. And I think it's just like like all my life growing up, I thought that I was like, you know, I want to go. I want to move somewhere. I want to do something. I never like moved out of the Central Valley, but I went and visited places, went to Portugal, visited my friends who all went to school all over and stuff like that. And like, I loved all those places. And then for me, it was like, I was in Merced my whole life that I wanted to get out of Merced. And so I just made the simple change of moving to Turlock. So I moved to Turlock, and then this was like in 2016, 2017.
The bright lights of Turlock.
Yeah, the bright lights of Turlock, red brick in its glory. And so so we moved to Turlock, or I moved to Turlock, and then I had a couple of my best friends up there too, and it was just like an awesome time. And then basically when the pandemic hit, that's when like I was like, oh, you know, being closer to my family, even though like I'm only like a 30-minute drive, but like it's just annoying when you have to like to go. Like I would work in Modesto and work in Merced for substituting, so my commute sometimes would be 35 minutes to Merced, and then I'd go back to my house in Turlock by 4 p.m. and go to work again in Modesto. So my commute was literally like 2 hours, but just all over the valley.
And we know the 99.
And then exactly. That was the before the 99 was getting construction. I mean, not before, but before the shit show that's going on now. And so basically, I'm trying to think how to loop this back around to the Central Valley. And so basically,
we're just talking shit on but we love it.
Yeah, I love it here. No, but then 2020 happened, the pandemic happened, and like it kind of just made me like look at the world differently. I think it made everybody like realize what's important in your life, and that's kind of where I like started having the idea for the podcast, idea for these things. And then the podcast, I feel like, just became what it is. And I love the Central Valley. I love the people here. I think that it gets a bad rep because, like I said earlier, people, no matter where you grow up, they're negative about something. Mm-hmm. They're like, you just grow resentment towards it. And so for me specifically, the Central Valley, like I had that same resentment that everybody else has. And then 2020 happened, and I was kind of like, hey, like, it's not as bad as everyone's making it. Like, yeah, we're still like have small towns here, but pandemic showed me that like, hey, if shit goes down, like it was a lot more chill here than it was in bigger cities. And like people came together for the first time in a long time. I felt like for a while it didn't seem like there was too much community, and this is maybe just me saying it, but I feel like after 2020, like the community of the Central Valley, everyone seemed to be more down for being helpful. Wasn't as like attacking like a left versus right thing. It was just like, hey, we're just happy to be here. We're happy to be out again. And so I kind of just wanted to like highlight that, you know what I mean? And saying like, hey, like we get a bad rep, but it's not that bad. It's not as bad as everyone's making it out to be. They're making it out to be like it's the worst place to live in the world. I'm like, maybe it's your perspective on life. Maybe you don't have like what you want to be doing in your life right now, and like you're taking it out on the city that you're from. Hey, maybe you just don't like it as well, and that's fine. You can move away. But it seems so weird that people from the Central Valley talk so much shit about it. And I get it to a certain extent. I get talk shit about the 99, talk shit about how like we just keep putting tire shops everywhere. We keep putting, you know what I mean? Like those are funny things to talk shit about, because it's like, hey, like, yeah, we should be putting things that are going to bring commerce versus things that are going to bring like, I don't know, no one, like, like you're saying downtown. Merced's the same way. They're putting like some nonsense downtown it's like all these perfect shops for some commerce place to go, and they're putting something that's not going to bring people together there. It's like a store that like no one's going to go into, you know what I mean? And so it's just like
tax preparation or something.
Yeah, or it's like a nonprofit. I'm all for fucking nonprofits, but how about not in the heart of downtown, because they're not bringing anything like to the community right there. You know what I mean? It's like there's a million places for rent in Merced. They could depict somebody else. Yeah.
And in suburbia and the mini mart areas, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, it exists. That's one of the things about Fresno is it continues to like grow outward. And so like we have these hubs of if you're coming from southbound from the 99, you can see that the first exit in Fresno, Herndon, there's a big old like complex there. They're putting a new Costco in there.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Costco. by the
Yeah,
way.
I've got that dog in me. Yeah.
But they're putting a new Costco in there, and literally, it's I was reading a $98 million project, and they're literally moving the existing Costco, which is less than 3 miles away,
Mm-hmm.
to that new.
Dude, yeah,
spot.
isn't it crazy? Businesses do that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like what?
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, it's a bigger facility, but like, all right, cool. Like, what, can we just buy some of the other spots around? Like, I just that's a notoriously Fresno kind of move.
Yeah, yeah. And
Central Valley.
Yeah, I think it just like, and that stuff does happen, you know what I mean? And like, that's the stuff where I'm like, okay, yeah, talk shit about that stuff. Like, whatever. Like, I'm not saying like, don't like, you can have opinions on things. You can not like things from the area you live in.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if you're going to live here, like, you're part of the problem if you're constantly talking shit about the area.
Right.
And like, you're not helping the problem. You're just creating the same cycle that I feel like people like do for like a long time. It's like, and like the thing that happens with the podcast that I never thought is that people who moved away listen to the podcast and they're like,
Oh, really?
dude, I actually I like hearing what's been going on, or like even just like following the Instagram page. They're like, oh, that's so fun. It's like a certain niche that like only those people who are from the area are gonna get.
Yeah.
And so it's like something that I never thought that people who moved away like wanted to hear about it, because you think everyone who moved away doesn't like the area, you know what I mean? And there's so many people who moved away that are like, I still like it. Other people obviously comment, they'll be like, this place fucking sucks, man. I'm like, oh.
When it comes to, I do have that sense of like, only people from Central Valley can talk shit about the Central Valley though too.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, we talk shit about it, but like if you're not from here, yeah, exactly.
I see like there's this really cool page. It's like stuff to do in the Central Valley, and so it's like it'll show the comments that I saw in there, because it's like places that are short 2 hours.
I laughed at this one. Sorry, sorry. I laughed at this one because it's like awesome day trips for Fresno, and it's like go to Monterey. And I'm like, okay, that's not a.
Well, the comments are like, the best thing about Fresno is leaving Fresno.
yeah. And I do laugh at those things because it's just like the wording on it that makes me chuckle. Because I'm like, don't say best day trips in Fresno, and it's like maybe if it was like Bass Lake or like, you know what I mean? That's an hour away, hour-ish. Like it seems, but like when you're saying like go to San Francisco, it's like that's just a good, like that's California.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Vegas is a short flight away too.
Yeah. No, yeah, I have a laugh. That's why that one of those that inspired me for. You see my almond blossom one where I'm like, hey, the best part about Central Valley is because I saw one of those videos like you have to see the Central Valley almond blossoms, blah blah blah, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna spin this, and then I like murdered Duffy in it, and I'm killing him. But like that shit makes me hella laugh.
Yeah, every photographer has the Blossom mini session.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I was like. I like to like make fun of stuff that's like unique to the Central Valley, but I love the area. It gets a bad rep, and at the end of the day, it's more than anything, it's about your perspective on life. Right. It's your perspective on your own personal life, your life with your family, with where you live. Your work plays a huge deal into it. Like I love what I do, and I'm still like don't like work. You know what I mean? Like I mean like don't like aspects of work, and that's something that I think everyone fantasizes like, oh, if I could find a job that I will love, and like every day I have a passion to going for it, and it's like you do have that passion, but it goes away over time in the sense of the newness of it. It's like awesome. I get to wake up and do video, photo stuff every single day, but it's like, 65-70% of that is sitting at a computer editing. You know what I mean? It's like the things you didn't think about growing into it.
Yeah, everybody gets the glamour part of like you being on set, somewhere, cool or exotic and things like that, and you're shooting photo. But yeah, you're spending the hours in a dark room, under a computer and stuff like that too. So, but anything becomes if it's repetitive and mundane, it's just hard to.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to tell people that like it's okay to like work a normal 9 to 5 too, because people like try to glamorize being an entrepreneur. It's the funny saying. It's like I was tired of working 9 to 5, so I decided to become my own boss. Now I work like 80 hours a week, basically. You know what I mean? And it's true, because it's like there's no off switch when you're working for yourself, and that's the biggest thing that like with having a family that I've been trying to work on is like having that off switch. My wife has to remind me like off the phone, like. Because like you just go on it to like do something, reply to somebody, and then all of a sudden you're just scrolling. You know what I mean? And it's like being present is like such a thing that I want to work. Being present and patient, because I feel like I just spew out the first thing on my mind and I don't think sometimes. You know what I mean? And that's what I want to get better at. Is like as a host, like I also don't think I'm the best speaker. People are like, oh, you have a good voice and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, but like every time I listen to a podcast myself, I'm like, oh, shut up, dude. Let the other person talk. Or you know what I mean? I just get so excited about it that like those are things I want to work on.
So you being on this side of it now, number one, you don't have to worry about the editing part. You know, you
Don't have to worry about the editing.
But how do you feel being like the subject of the conversation?
I like it. It's just like because as a host, you're like, what do I have to? I mean, it's good when you have like when you get two podcasters in a room, they're gonna talk. It's fine. It's easy. I've had guests sometimes where it's like they're not helping me carry the conversation, and it's like, what am I gonna ask about next? I used to have like a list of questions. It used to be way more interview like where I would like ask them these specific questions. Now I just see what the conversation flows. I write a list of questions before and then I don't look at it.
Yeah,
but like just so that you have an idea of things and topics to go off of.
Yeah, and I think that's a good like baseline. But I even said, you know, she was like, I'm gonna send you some topics. We probably won't get to any of them.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
It's a good thing to think about, you know. And also like I even think that like thinking about these things ahead of time just kind of sets the conversation in your mind. So you know, I don't do so much. So before for the first, you know, interviews that I had or whatever, you know, people that I had on, it was literally like, yeah, like preparation, you know, and like me like having my laptop and looking at it at the time and stuff too. But now it's very much more conversational. I just think that like I like talking to interesting people about interesting stuff, and for that reason, it's there's no problem. I haven't had a problem yet of having, you know, some input and things like that.
Yeah, I feel it.
I just want to commend you though on the subject of you know the Central Valley podcast. I love what you're doing with it, the concept of you know highlighting people in the Central Valley that are passionate about stuff. Because it in itself is a promotion of the Central Valley.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I just heard the interview with the sheriff and sheriff. You know, it's people like that that are actually, you know, making impacts, doing things on a daily to actually help enrich the areas that they live in. And I think you're doing that. Maybe you don't even intend to do that, but you're doing that. You're making the Central Valley a cool place to be. It's a creative spot. It's, you know,
yeah. I feel like there's so many creative. I don't know what happened. I mean, maybe I became a creative after 2020, so maybe that's why I noticed it. But I feel like in the last 4 years, there's so many creatives that like out of nowhere, people just started doing it and getting into it. And I used to be like the mentality where I'm like when you first get into something, you're like, oh man, like there's so many of us. Is there going to be enough work? Blah, blah, blah. Like that type of mentality. But now it's like apparently there's enough work for everybody. You know, there's new people coming in every day. And then some people do it for X amount of time. And then they realize they like to do it for themselves, but not for a job, blah, blah, blah. But I love how many creatives that are coming out of the Central Valley. It's so cool to see. It's so cool that like, there's this talented ass dude. I wish I didn't remember his name, but in Bakersfield, I found this like random. I was looking at for like short film inspiration, and I just was watching this random one online. It had like 100,000 views, and I was like, damn, this is hella sick. And then I look it up, and then the dude's like Bakersfield, California. Go find his Instagram, and I'm like, dude, I just watched your shit. That's fucking dope. And like people, I love finding creatives that just inspire me because they're your peers, you know what I mean? And I love to see my peers succeed, and I love to see people who do things, whether it's tattoos, whether it's other podcasts, whether it is, I want everybody to succeed and like just grow. And even if like you don't, maybe you like try something out and then you put it down, you know what I mean? That's fine too, because it's like it's all about finding out what you're passionate about. Like, I mean, will I do the podcast forever? I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say yeah because I don't know. You know what I mean? But I think it'll evolve over time to be something else. You know what I mean? It already has. Like, it already surpassed my wildest dreams of started doing a podcast. Not that I have like crazy listeners or anything, but like I was just like, let's see where this leads, and it led to more than I ever thought it would. And so I always tell everything else is just a cherry on top, and I'm just enjoying the ride. And I like to kind of slow it down, like, and analyze stuff. Like you're saying seasons earlier. Like, so we'll probably go to like October this year, and October, November or something, and then we'll probably take 5 months off again. And like those 5 months, it's like we're still actively making videos, doing funny stuff. We're just not doing podcasts because that's so time consuming, and like you got a life to live.
Yeah, long form conversation though, as interesting as it is, because like it's interesting because I can only handle something in a super long form or very bite sized.
Yeah.
Like 15 seconds and I'm done, or like give me 2 hours. Conversation, you know. So it's interesting, like that's the sweet spot for me, you know. And so, you know, I consume podcasts like all the time, you know.
Yeah, me too.
And so that gets me.
What are your go-to podcasts?
Right now, I'm super into Theo Von. So,
Oh, yeah.
So this past weekend is my go-to. I look forward to any.
Shine that light on
Yeah.
me. That's a perfect podcast song.
Yeah.
It's like the most perfect theme song, I feel like.
And then Adam Carolla, I'm still, you know, he's whatever. I also listen to there's a actually mostly, I think almost exclusively comedy based podcasts.
Yeah, I like Two Bears One Cave a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Two Bears, One Cave, that's a good one. I only listen to that I don't listen to that consistently unless there's somebody that a guest that
yeah.
But the ones that I'm like subscribed to that I get, you know, look forward to is We Might Be Drunk is Mark Norman. And,
Okay, yeah. Mark Norman's so funny. Comedy.
Yeah. I got to see him in Bakersfield actually.
Oh, nice.
He so Mark Norman, he's got another one with a guy named Joe List.
Yeah.
Tuesdays with Stories.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and then I listen to consistently. I listen to Bad Friends, Bobby.
Oh yeah.
Whiskey Ginger sometimes.
Yeah, good guess. Yeah, that's like me too with like Andrew Santino. Like I like him, but sometimes I don't like every guess is whatever.
The balance of him and Bobby though, that's
yeah.
Than anything, you know. So yeah, I'm you know a comedy fan.
Yeah.
And that's crazy because I kind of envisioned this podcast to be somewhat of that. It's like, you know, we're shooting the shit, you know, banter,
yeah.
hot chuckles. It's even like, so my logo, everything about it was like a play on like bathroom humor.
Yeah.
You know, the men's
Yeah.
And even my tagline, where relief is your duty.
Oh, yeah.
Urinate self.
Yeah.
So that was always like the intent behind it, but it got like really like quickly like evolved into like talking about deep stuff really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm about that too. You know, I'm about that life to you know, it's a lighthearted approach at some often heavy topics, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was always about like the conversations around this, the stuff that I started was people that were not speaking so much about mental health and men's health in general, you know? And so, you know, we, especially maybe the Hispanic side of things, but I think it's layered with the manhood side of things, is that we don't talk about feelings.
Yeah.
Shit, you know, like, and so that
for so many generations, it's like you couldn't, because you just had to suck it up and
you know,
help your family survive. Like it's like in our DNA almost, I feel like. But now it's like 21st century where like guys can talk about their feelings. You know, well, it's like it's becoming a new thing where it's like guys are openly doing it. Before it'd be like just seem like nah, suck it up.
Yeah. Look at this little bitch. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, so
a little bitch.
Yeah, around that. But you know, happy to say that that's, you know, like sometimes it's necessary. So I always think that the conversations that I'm having, it's for me because it's very therapeutic. You know.
Oh yeah.
I get it out. I'm able to like, you know, welcome that. You know, and I've had like, you know, a couple of guys that are like super into psychedelics and things that are like spiritual, like trying to tackle these things. I had a therapist on too that was very, very enlightened. That
I think I watched a little bit of that one.
Super good interview that.
This guy from Rockland, right?
Yeah.
My cousin. When he said that, I was like, I have cousins that live in Rockland. I was like, small world.
Yeah. So yeah, you know, very interesting conversations around that. But like, you know, targeting these kind of things that we don't typically talk about. So it sort of evolved into, I think, a really comfortable place of, you know, I still every once in a while I'll throw in these little subtle, you know, jabs of humor.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you want to be able to be yourself, and like if you like to like have that relief of comedy, that's like my podcast. It's like yeah, the sheriff one was more serious, but I'm still like cracking up laughing in the sheriff's interview because I'm like bringing up things, or like he's saying something. He's like, I don't like to dress up. I was like, I don't know, man. I was like, you like dress the part of sheriff to the T. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So yeah, that was kind of where it just took a different direction, you know, than I had anticipated, and but in a good way. I think, you know, I'm always going to be a jokester, so like I find like lighthearted approaches. Like I use humor to like diffuse when I feel awkward or feel like, you know. It's very inappropriately timed, you know.
Oh, that's all mine is too. Like I just laugh.
My wife hates it because I'll say.
Oh yeah.
Wrong spot, you know.
Oh, dude, my wife too. She's like, she said we do. You know the song that's like, "Give me a second, I need to get my story straight." That song, for some reason, it's like the We Are Young song. Dude, I've been like quoting that song nonstop, and I just laugh. But anytime she's like, "Give me a second," I'm like, I need to get my story straight. And like she's like frustrated trying to pack up the kid, and she's like, "Shut up." And then I'd say some way more inappropriate stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even. It's just a timing.
Yeah,
stuff,
timing.
You know?
Yeah.
Because she's talking about something that she's pissed off about, and I'm just like
joking about it.
Yeah,
you're
exactly,
laughing.
You know?
You think it's too early? No.
Your call, man. It's all for you. Those are yours right there, sir.
All right.
Shout out Full Circle.
Shout out Full Circle Brewing.
Yeah.
I know that you guys are downtown, down the street from Tioga. There's like 3 or 4 breweries right down the district, right?
Yeah. So,
what else is there? Full Circle, Tioga.
There's another spot that's shit. I'm gonna butcher it. It's super local, small spot that's just over the
Train tracks.
Yeah, on the other side. I don't remember.
I couldn't tell you. I've been down in Fresno like twice in the past year.
But they used to have a spot called Zach's where they actually Full Circle took over the spot that they're at now. But there's like a cocktail bar and everything there too, so it's a good spot. They even put a barbecue spot down there.
Oh,
too,
that's cool. That's cool.
It's like a perfect place to go on a I like Tioga because it's a good spot to take, have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah, and they can run around. It's fenced in, like whatever.
Exactly. So like, yeah, they're you just have to deal with some cigarette smoke.
Yeah, whatever. I mean,
Central Valley.
If the air's already
asthma,
dude, dude, the air's already bad enough. You think some cigarette smoke's gonna do something to you? I'm just kidding.
I mean, every kid, it's just expected that they're gonna have allergies. Honestly.
Oh yeah. There's no way you're getting away from allergies. But I didn't have them like the first 18 years of my life. I didn't have them until I was an adult, I feel like.
Same.
Which I feel like is common, or actually as a kid, you're probably just sneezing and stuff, and you're like, what? Like, you're not like, I got allergies. Like, and I think our parents were like, this kid got allergies.
Exactly. I never took medication for it.
Yeah.
And who knows, I could have been dying, probably had asthma,
Yeah, exactly.
Never knew I did,
Maybe the air was cleaner back then too. I don't know.
Possible. I mean, cars or whatever else, that.
Yeah, because I feel like we used to, like, when we were growing up, how old are you?
I'm 39 now.
39. Okay, I'm 31. But like, it's funny because I feel like we probably identify more with each other than like if me, like, because we're like 8-year difference, right? Mm-hmm. But me and a 20
do the math
3-year-old, is that right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I feel like we're gonna have way less in common though, because like we're like, you're millennial still, right? Yeah. Like our childhoods were the same. We got into computers like while they were coming out, you know what I mean?
The internet happened.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the big thing. AIM, MySpace, those type of things. Like people were trying to figure out what this whole internet thing was about, where kids today and like even before like Gen Z, like, do you see my post when I was like, imagine if Gen Z gets like drafted, like TikTok dancing and stuff. And I like the kid. I let a kid around, you know what I mean? But like, it's just so funny because it's like growing up, I didn't have computers in high school. We had computers, but you went to the computer lab, right?
Yeah.
Like 4 years after me, every single kid had a Chromebook. Right. So it's crazy how quick it shifted,
Yeah. It's like technology. Technology is rapidly moving, and so it basically like we I agree with you though. Anybody that's like even 5 years from me, anybody that's 5 years younger, it's kind of like I would say that I align more with like anybody that's a millennial.
Yeah. I'm sure like because like opposite 8 years older than you, I'm sure you don't like compare with that person as much as like me and you can compare with each other.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's funny how it works like that, like generations.
Yeah, I used to always gauge my age based on the professional athletes that were still.
Oh
playing.
yeah, and then you realize like they're not athletes anymore.
I mean, Tom Brady's retired now. So there's not many. The only one that's a little bit older than me is LeBron.
Yeah, I was gonna say LeBron, but like he's only got. I mean, he just re-signed a deal with the Lakers, didn't he?
Yeah, I think
he's just trying to play with his kid, right? I'm pretty sure that's all it is. Like
he can play well into his 40s, and still be effective. But that's like he's my hope that he represents the old man.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's crazy because then other people that like used to be kids or you felt like were kids, right. they're your age. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like college kids right now that are playing like athletics or whatever. I'm like, these guys are huge. I'm like, but they're like kids.
Dude, this guy's 19. This guy's 20. What the hell?
Yeah. I want to be mindful of your time, man. I just,
you're good.
But I had a question. I have a question that I ask everybody kind of up front, and I want to ask you further down this line here now that we've had a chance to get into the rhythm of things. But so typically when somebody asks, about you, about like you meet a new person at a party or whatever, typically it's like, what do you do? But I asked the question about who do you say you are? Like who do you feel you are? What are the depths of the person that you think you are? I mean, think relationship wise, career could be that. What makes up Micah? What makes up your?
I think I've always been a dude that I like to make other people laugh, be happy, that type of thing. And I think that's like translated into all these other things like the podcast, just how I am with my friends, how I'm with my wife. But I think like deeper than that, it's just I like to make people happy. I like to bring people joy in a certain way, one way or another, whether that's making a fool of myself, whether that's making fun of somebody, whether I mean in a good way, you know what I mean? Whether that's depending on what it is, the situation, you know, I can like joke and laugh with my grandpa too, you know what I mean? So it's just like I think deeper than all that is just like I'm just a regular dude. That's what I really feel. Like I'm just a regular dude who's trying to show people that like, dude, like you can do anything that you want. You can do anything you put your mind to, but you just got to put in the work. And like just trying to show people that like with their own life, you got to burping. With your own life, you just got to be willing. Like there's so many times that I think that I'm not doing enough. I'm falling short. Like I could be a better husband. I could be a better father. I could be a better son. I could be a better podcaster, better videographer. I cut corners. You know what I mean? I have all the same doubts everybody else has, but we all have that commonality. You know what I mean? And maybe some people don't, but like at the end of the day, like we're all just people trying to find our place in the world. And it's so hard to find your place in the world. And people think like, oh, like this guy found his place in the world. And I still like when you get to the place that you think you want to be at, you're like, is this what I want? You know what I mean? And it's just that reevaluating your life over and over and over again. And that's what I honestly, on my way up here, I was thinking about. I'm just like, man, like you get to a certain point and then you kind of go like, the now what? Like now what? Like I did what I wanted to, you know what I mean? And that's where I'm at right now with my life is like, I like the idea was the podcast was just an idea and like it became this thing. And like, I love representing the Central Valley, but it's kind of like, now I'm like, now what? Like I love videography. I want to kind of do something for the Central Valley that's more has to do with videography. And if I do want to do that, it's like me sacrificing not doing the podcast for X amount of time or whatever. And so I think that I'm just a dude who wants to show people that you control your own destiny, right? Like you are in control. It's nobody else. It's easy to point fingers at people, but at the end of the day, it's just like trying to remind yourself to be happy in the day to day. Like that's the most important thing. And I have to constantly remind myself that because I'll get so worked up. Like, oh, I edited 5 days in a row, not laughing, not hanging out with people, not, you know what I mean? Not just being out. And then I get so involved with it that I want to, or I get so into my daily routine that like I don't do stuff for myself. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's like a big thing is doing stuff for myself, but then also finding time for your family and then also finding time for your wife and yourself and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I guess a little tangent, but yeah, I just like, I'm a dude who wants to make people happy. And that doesn't come with just being the podcast, like the day-to-day stuff. It's like, I try to remind myself that everybody's a person and like my day-to-day interactions, it's like, you should be walking around happy because you're fucking alive. Like you're alive, dude.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow's not promised. You know what I mean? Like death happens all the time. And it's just like, you get so used to a cyclical cycle until something crazy happens and you don't know how to handle it because you haven't been living your life like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I went through it, I went through the brink of October. I had my heart attack. And
oh, you had a heart attack?
Had a heart attack, man.
Dang.
It's definitely a wake up call in your life. And when these things kind of come around, you just like the little petty shit, that you take for granted on a, for me, the thing that was top of mind is how casual the goodbyes that I said that day when I went to the ER. I thought it was having a panic attack. I went to the ER thinking like, all right, they're just going to send me home. I'm going to be there for hours. It's going to be like just a long drawn out process and quickest ER visit I've ever had because I was rushed back and stuff too. But when I said goodbye to my wife and boys, it was so casual, like, see you later, buddy, and that was it, a little peck on the cheek of my wife.
Yeah.
Thinking, like, if that was the last time I got to say goodbye to them, so you learn to, and it's easy to get back into a rhythm of like, life happening, I still get frustrated with him and it's like everything happens. It's full cycle, it comes back around, to being in a place. But when something drastic like that happens, at least you start thinking about the most important things in your life, and a lot of that, I'm the same way that you are. I love to make people happy. I love to inspire, in any way as well. But where I feel I lack is making the people that are closest to me happy. I give so much to others in a lot of ways.
That's something I can super relate with. Like, there's not a lot left over by the time you get home,
Yeah.
right?
And most of the time it's the negative, so I get there because I'm having a frustrating day at work, or everything else that comes up, and I'm like, my capacity is only now at the negative, and so if I only hold on to the bad and let them see that aspect of me, it's going to be the grumpy dad, the whole trope of that, and I want to break that. I want to break out of that habit of because I mean that's true for a lot of guys, honestly. Is that you're just known for the frustration and the anger part. It's funny because I was asking my son.
How old's your son?
I have a 5-year-old boy and a 2-year-old.
Okay.
But I was asking my 2-year-old like if he can, because he likes to. They both like to like imitate animal sounds and stuff. And then so I was saying like, what does the cow say? And then they were like, and I was like, what does the mommy say? And they were like, ha 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 ha, like doing an impression of mommy.
Yeah.
And I was like, what about daddy? They go, And I was like, damn, that hurts my heart.
Yeah.
I'm the angry one.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be known for that. I don't want them to have that perspective of me. I mean, we have a ton of, they're my little buds, So they also like we love to play and stuff too. I think it's in the way I justified it. I was like, oh, it's because when we wrestle, I go, So hopefully that's what.
And it's like, but kids are. I love how like naive and blunt kids are. Like one of my nephews, writer. Everything's literal. Like everything's so literal. Like somebody said something, he's like, that's not realistic. Like, you know what I mean? They're like watching something and like it was like a commercial and like a wolf was at a stadium. He's like, that's stupid. A wolf wouldn't be at a stadium. And I was like, use your imagination, like kid, come on. Like but they're just so blunt and to the point. And sometimes like you forget, like us, we like shelter ourselves with like the same things you say to everybody. Like someone's like, what's up? How you been? Oh, I've been good. Like we're really busy with work. You know what I mean? My go-to is like, oh, I'm super busy. I can't. Like, you know what I mean? With people, it's like, and sometimes it's like, hey, like you're not as busy as you're making yourself seem. You know what I mean? So like,
which by the way, having a kid gets you out of a lot of obligations.
Sometimes it's cool, yeah. But then it's like also like crazy. Like when you want to just go somewhere with your kids, just like gotta bring an arsenal of stuff, and then.
It gets a little easier as the years go by, but still, like
you still got to take so much stuff with you. Yeah.
We maybe stupidly a year and a half ago we went to Barcelona, Spain, with our 2 boys.
And how old was?
We had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. At the time, and so he well actually one of them puked on the way there, one of them puked on the way back. So, and it was
evened out.
11-hour flight from San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so they weren't having a good time on the plane. When we got there, it was great.
Yeah.
But it was the travel part that.
That's like.
And then you're
like, is it going to be as bad as I think it is? Yeah, it's going to be as bad as I think it is.
Yeah, we had all the bags, all that. Like we bought, my wife like invested in this like these little pop-up things that are supposed to like have them, you can lay down.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't work at all. It's horrible. It was just like, she was like, I'm going to return this from on Amazon.
Oh, yeah, dude. Amazon's the best. You can return anything. Actually, they got a little more strict on returning stuff recently, which I get because I've returned some bullshit.
I heard somebody told me, they gave me the advice of like, because my AirPods are kind of getting, to get old and worn. Like, order some on Amazon, put the old ones into the case, return those. So I was like, damn, that's a great idea.
You always have like, just clean them up, you know what I mean? And then just send them back.
Because they're looking for the case. They open it up. All right. It's not, it open, and they're not like seeing the bottoms that are like,
you like, worn and everything. Yeah. That's funny.
But dude. I was like, oh shit, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I might do that with Best Buy.
Yeah. No, Best Buy's a little harder to do. That's awesome, dude. So what do you do for work? What's your work?
I work for a lighting manufacturer. So we manufacture light fixtures, and I manage a small team there. So
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's cool work. It's a new industry and a new kind of endeavor entirely for me, because my background's in tech. So I was working in software for like 12 years.
Oh, okay.
So another reason, I mean, long story, but when I went through my heart attack, I had a lot of like self-reflection and evaluation and stuff too. So I was working remotely. I valued like human interaction a lot more. And so now working locally, but also I had that mentality of like, hey, I want to help, boost the local economy a little bit too. And if there's anything I can do to contribute to that, then, so be it. So
That's the thing too, like what you're saying, like you like to, like you probably, so you said you were working from home for a while, but you're alone by yourself every single day. And that's like with editing, that's the thing that like I miss, like the break that you can have with the coworker where you're just like kind of shooting the shit sometimes.
Yeah,
you're just
water
like,
talk,
exactly. You're just hanging out. Cause when you're just like every day over and over, that's like, I've been looking for, like, I want to get like a bigger studio that was just more creatives. Because I want to be able to go into work and like someone else is editing on their computer too. You say what's up to them and then you do your work, whatever. But like I miss that coworker feeling, the camaraderie that you get, even if it's like work friends or whatever. It's still when you're working by yourself, or like only time I'm working with people if it's like a bigger project, you know what I mean? And like, but I have a lot of like day-to-day tasks that like I have to do. So I wish I could just go and like decompress with somebody.
Yeah, it's definitely helpful, and then also like, I feel like, so I was interacting with people like all the time. So meetings and stuff were like that with Zoom, and I had such like, it's cool because I have, like people and connections that I've met, around the state, or not in the state, the country.
Yeah.
So in different states. And so, but like now every interaction that I have is like somebody, I'm like, oh, like, hey, have you been to this spot? Like, cause I can't, tell them like, hey, have you been to Full Circle?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what is that? I've never been to Fresno.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like more impactful to have like the community, run a little bit thicker that way, So yeah, that's been it's been a new endeavor and challenging, but it's been a good one. Like I like what being able to contribute. I think locally a little bit more. So that's.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, I'm not like the biggest. Like, it's not like I create commerce locally and like those things that I'm saying like I want other people to do, because like I would love to like open up like like one of my things that I think would be so cool is like open up a store that has like the Pine and Palm logo, but it's not necessarily Central Valley Podcast. I just love the logo. I think the logo is fucking perfect. You know what I mean? And I think it could be used so many different ways. You ever been to Chico?
The city?
Yeah. So there's a store there called Upper Park, and their logo is like a little tree basically. But I went there one time, and it's just like their local brand, and they have like so much cool like random stuff, and they make everything like in-house there and stuff like that. But it's like a cool community-based thing. And when I walked there, I'm like, and when I'm in Chico, I'm like, bro, this is Central Valley too. I know it's not. I know they're for sure NorCal, but like the vibes is a foothill town, like a bigger town next to the foothills. Like, you ever been to Knights Ferry or like so any like thing in the foothills, basically like any like I'm sure it's Big Bass Lake, like, you know what I mean? But it just reminds me of like classic. Like if you were to drive the foothills from Merced to Fresno or in Fresno and Bakersfield, like they're all look the same. And same thing as Chico, like they look the same. So but they have a cool store.
Yeah, I love anything that's foothill adjacent or something. We have over here, it's like Parade there and like Oakhurst and stuff like that that you eventually get to. But my wife and I have gone a couple of times now to Sonora. So like you gotta
go to Murphy's. There's this little town like kind of next to Sonora called Murphy's, and it's like this hella cute small little mountain town. But it's like there's like wineries everywhere, so you can just like walk with the kids and like have wine. There's like a little park and like playgrounds and stuff. But it's like and it's like hella cheap there too, or relatively to stay there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But yeah, Murphy's. It's like my parents. They're like a lot of. They have a whole bunch of wine memberships places, and so like they introduced it to me and my wife. That, and have you ever been to Mammoth Lakes? On the other side of Yosemite, basically.
Yeah, I think when I was a kid, but yeah, it's been a while.
Dude, it's my favorite place. One of my favorite places in California. For sure, my favorite place in California. It's just like it's a cool mountain town, but it's big enough to where it has like a few different bars and breweries. Has a bowling alley, so it's like pretty big. You know what I mean? Movie theater. It's pretty big, but like it's still like a mountain town. There's like hot springs you can go to. Anywhere you look, it's beautiful. You can go on like these massive hikes places. You can go on small hikes. Like there's just so much to do. It's like mine and my wife's. It's like we went there together for the first time, and like it just we keep going back every single year.
You should do one of those parody things about like the cool places to go. And,
no,
but something along the lines of like. It's along that line of like, it's not even Central Valley. It's way out of the distance.
It's like the best part about living in the Central Valley. It's like you drive 3.5 hours,
a quick 4.5 hour drive away.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a good one. Do that, and I literally have a list of so many promo ideas. That's like all I like, and that's the thing that me and Duffy kind of have been realizing is like we love our promos and making them arguably more than we enjoy doing the podcast, and it's something that we've kind of like realized recently, and that we kind of want to lean into like better, high quality, funny promos, like skits. I love sketch comedy. Have you ever seen the show I Think You Should Leave?
Yes, I have. Yeah,
Dude, yeah, I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like that's
a popular meme. Like,
yeah, exactly. All his memes. Yeah. And
he's an SNL guy, right?
oh yeah. So Tim Robinson.
Tim Robinson.
Yeah. He's just like a straight to my funny bone type of dude. And so like all those, like all of our sketches are like, I love sketch comedy, like that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to do like, just like Shane Gillis's Gillian Keeves and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like that's kind of what I want to do too. Like if you could be like, what do you want to do as your job? Like if I could just do funny skits, that's what I would want to do.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily like I'm not like, oh, I want to be an actor or I like acting. It's like I just like comedy and making. I think I like making other people laugh, but I would like. And I like. Are you like the average dude where you're like, if I did have to do stand up, this is what I would like. I'm always like, for some reason, zoning out thinking about what my stand up set would be.
I know I have a tight 6-minute set that I have already.
Nice. I have 2 stories that I had like. Those are my go-to stories of like the real stories that happened, and like those are my 2 stories that I would tell on stage. But like, and then like I'll randomly be like, oh, that would be a good bit, and I'm like, for what? Like,
well, I take it a step further. I don't know what I'll do with it because I always want to, it's a bucket list thing is to do a open mic somewhere,
I want to do one too, honestly. Like it's kind of like what I've been like. I'm like, maybe I'll like it a lot, and it does kind of suck. Is like, I mean, Central Valley does have a comedy scene now that like I think feel like came up out of the blue. Like people do shows and stuff, but it's like not known for it. So it's like seems like
there's not a comedy club either.
Yeah. It's just like comedy at restaurants, comedy at places, and then sometimes it's like you're not getting people going for the comedy.
Right.
You gotta like talk to people who are like there to eat dinner.
Yeah, that's fair. Actually, Full Circle they have now a Sunday night open mic night, and I'm gonna hit that up once. But I'm just worried like I'm a people pleaser also. So if like nobody laughs at this stuff that I'm it's gonna
hit me with one of them, man. Hit me with one of your. But something a part of your. I'll give you one of my stories. You give me one of yours.
Mine are not story based. It's more.
Bit
specifically. But so I used to work with this Muslim guy, but he was the kind of Muslim guy that was only when it was convenient. Like you get out of work for Ramadan.
Yeah.
But he said he was a super huge womanizer. Everything that we everywhere we'd go, whatever, he's always hitting on chicks.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, you pray 5 times a day? He's like, oh, we'll see. Right? So he's a womanizer, a devout Muslim. But I said that don't let the Muslim fool you because my boy's trying to pork.
Yeah, that's pretty good. No, I think that's funny. Yeah, that's good. But yeah, you gotta like the delivery of like stand up is like everything. So like if you say it too quickly or if you know what I mean, like it's like that's what's like so scary about it. It's like
so even that I butchered the timing, the delivery.
No, but no, I still laughed. That was good. I still got it. You know what I mean? Where
it's in sequence of like the way because my set. Okay, I'm kind of giving away.
I mean, like it's one of those things. Like if someone's gonna like be so into it that they're gonna come see you too, like cool.
Yeah. And if they've got so far this far into the pod,
thank you.
You get a little sneak peek of that. So I talk about my name Ishmael. And here, I know what you're thinking. This is another American. What do you call it? What's the word for like gentrifying?
Okay,
Another American gentrifying an Arabic name.
Yeah.
But I have I'm a Mexican American gentrifying.
Yeah, exactly.
So that makes it. That, and then I go into like, it's a Muslim name or whatever, and then I go into that story about.
That where you can kind of like connect the things. Yeah, that's my thing. Is like I don't have the connections of anything. I just got like random stories that I can tell, but that are like. They hit, but I don't know how they would connect them. And mine are all like real stuff, not necessarily like I can't like.
That's the best.
Yeah. All right, so we got one about my ex neighbor who was upstairs, or one about my nephew. Which one do you want to hear?
We talked about your nephew already. Or maybe it was a different.
Yeah, it was, but it doesn't matter. No, we'll do the upstairs neighbor.
All right.
So literally, we had this upstairs neighbors making like literally imagine it, he was moving furniture every single night, just don. We're like, what the hell is going on? And my roommate at the time would fucking always like hit the broom up, you know what I mean? And like one time he does, like he's been hella loud, it's like 5 o'clock or something like that, and then my neighbor, my roommate like starts like hitting at the top, and then he has to go to work. He leaves to work, and then all of a sudden like the doorbell rings right afterwards. I'm like, what is this? And I like peek in, and there's some Mexican dude, and I'm like, hello? And he was like, hey, can I talk to you? And I'm like, I guess. And he's like, hey, I don't like it when you knock on my shit. And I was like, what? And he was like when you hit back and knock on my shit. I'm like, oh, sometimes like we're just like sleeping, or like we got work early in the morning, so when it's like at 2 a.m. like we're just trying to sleep. And he is like, I don't appreciate when you knock my shit. I'm like, all right, hey, I'm sorry, man. And he was like, hey, I know I smell like you like smoke weed down here. He's like, you want to smoke a bowl? And I'm like I did this thing where I get myself in the most uncomfortable situations. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll go up. And I had my shirt off at the time. And then I was like, let me like grab a shirt real quick. And then he was like, okay. And then like, so I grab a shirt. I put it on, and then like we're walking up, and he's like, as we walk up, he's like, hey, you're not gay or anything, right? And I'm like, no, like, what's up? And so they go into his apartment, and there's like literally like 30 beer cans on the coffee table. And I'm like, oh, the fuck, this guy's drunk. Like, you know, now I know it, but I'm in his apartment. The door's shut behind me. And then he's like, and there's a weight bench in the very middle. I'm like, well, there's the fucking noise. Like, that's where the noise is coming from. And he's like, you like sports? And I was like, oh, yeah, I like sports. And like, he's like, and he's like, takes me into like one of his rooms. And he's like, what team do you like? And I'm like I didn't even like the Raiders, but I saw he had a Raiders jersey, so I was like, I'm just gonna say Raiders, you know what I mean? I was like, Raiders, and he was just like, really? And then like goes in his closet, he has this like old XXL jersey, and he takes it out, and he's like, I want you to have this, man. I was like, no, like I'm not gonna take it, man. It's okay, like you don't need to give me this. And he's like, no, man, I want you to have it. I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I want you to have it. I'm like, it's okay, like really, man, I don't need it. And he is just like, no, just take it, man. I'm like, okay. And then so I take it, and he's like, all I ask for you is like you to get me one of like, it was when Jimmy G first became the Niners quarterback. Get me like a Jimmy G jersey whenever you can. I'm like, no, like I don't have any money to do that. I'm not doing that. He's like, no, man, just do it. I'm like, all right, like I'll get it to you one day, man, like whenever I can. And then long story short, he freaking like sits down with his guitar. He's like, you like music? And I'm like, yeah, I like music. And he doesn't know how to play guitar, but he starts playing this guitar because he's like drunk, and he just starts singing like mariachi music to me. And I'm like, and he's like, yeah, man, check this out. He freaking shows me like a video of him singing with like his buddies or something like that. I'm like, that's cool. And then I'm like, are we going to smoke this bowl, man? Or what are we going to do? And he's like, yeah. And then we like make it halfway down his hallway. He stops. He's like, you wear boots? And I was like, I don't wear boots. And he opens up his cupboard, pulls out these boots. And he was like, these are like $400 boots. I was like, oh, those are nice. He was just like, I'll sell them to you for $150. I was like, it's okay, man. Like, I don't need this. Like, I don't wear boots, and they're the wrong size too. Like, they're not my size. He's like, are you sure, man? He's like, yeah, man. He's like, man, seriously, this is a great deal. I'm like, I'm not gonna buy these boots, man. Like, I'm sorry. And then like finally, I'm like, what about smoking this bowl? And he like, we go outside, we start smoking the bowl, and then he just starts getting hella emotional and like low key almost starts crying. And I'm like, oh, like things will get better between you and your ex, man. Like, don't worry about it. And then like I'm like, all right, hey, like I have to get going to work. Like I gotta get going to work. I didn't have to go to work. I'm just like, I gotta get going, man. And he was just like, real quick, hold on. And then we go back in his living room, and he has like his weight bench there. He's like, you think you can hit that? And I'm like, yeah, I think I can hit that. And he was like, do it. I was like, you want me to bench this right now? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, all right. And so like I go. I'm like laying down in this guy's apartment, and I go, and as soon as I pick it up, he was like, all right, you got 10 in you, man, let's go. I'm like, what? And like he's counting 10 as I do them, and like, all right. And then I'm like, and then he's like, all right, my turn. And then he like starts doing it. He like barely gets through 10, and then he sits up and he just starts punching the bench that he's sitting on, and he starts crying. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he was like, man, I'm like, I told you that like, I'm a good guy, blah blah. I'm like, he was like, hey man, can I ask you something? And I'm like, this guy's about to ask me to suck his dick or something. Like, you know what I mean? He was like, you don't have to say, you don't have to answer it right away, but I just like, I need to ask you this. I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, I want you to text my ex and tell her that, like, I'm a good man, that like I've changed, that I figured out like, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, okay, like I'll put it in my number, I'll put her number in my phone, I'll do that later. And he just starts like bawling basically. And I'm like, hey man, I gotta go to work. And so then I go back and I just leave the house because I'm like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. This guy lives above me, and like, what the fuck? And then so like I just go sit in Starbucks for like an hour because I'm like, I don't know what to fucking do. I just gotta sit here. And then like I go back to my house or my apartment. I'm like, I just gotta make it inside, like without him seeing. And so I pull back up to the house, and as I'm pulling up, he's walking down the stairs. I'm like, oh my fucking God. He's like, hey man, did I leave my phone in your apartment? I'm like, no man, you didn't. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, I'm positive, man, it's nowhere. And then he's like, can you call my phone? Because before he gave me his number, but I was like, oh, I don't have it because I never put it on my phone. So I end up calling his phone. It's in the boot box with the fucking boots, right? And then I find it. But then from that point on, for the next year, he would hit me up like all the time to hang out and like call me, and he'd be like, hey, we got strippers up here tonight, man. Well, I'm like, what do you mean you got strippers like above us? jealous. You know what I mean? But just like this, like it was like my craziest neighbor experience. Like it was just like over and over, he would hit me up to come do things, and I'm like, bro, we're not friends. And then I recently got this guy like, this guy used to be my neighbor. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Who the fuck? I'm like, oh, it's that fucking guy. Like, and I've told the story on multiple podcasts, so I'm like always worried about this guy fucking listening because he was crazy. One time, him and all his buddies were there. They all look pretty hood. You know what I mean? They're all like they're standing in my parking spot and like smoking cigarettes, and like I go to pull in. And, or like I just park somewhere else, and then like I get out of my car, and they're like, why the fuck you looking at us like that? Like they're what do you say? I'm like, you're just standing in my parking spot. That's like the only reason I was like, they're like, oh, our bad. And I'm like, yeah, like, but like confrontational, you know what I mean? But like that in a better way would be one of my stand-up bits.
Man, that you went through every facet of this guy's life,
dude. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm like, dude, I met you for fucking 10 minutes and like far too much of you. But then he would just randomly knock on the door to like see what I was up to, and we just like look. Me and my roommate would just look. We just wouldn't answer. I'm like, no way, we're not answering this right now.
I thought what you were gonna say is that when you started hitting the weights, like once you got on the bench, you heard do, 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 do from the bottom.
Oh no, that'd be hella funny though. my roommate's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Yeah, so I don't knock on anybody's shit if they're being loud anymore. I can tell you that. Like I don't want any of these interactions.
Even if it's a bad one, it's kind of like, well, I mean, this guy, I technically it was a good one, but you know, like
it was okay one, but I didn't want to be this guy's therapy session either.
Man, I think there's no better way to end the podcast, land the plane than that story. Right
yes, that works out.
Anything, and you know, I'm gonna tag your socials and things like that too, you know, my humble little following shit, but. Anything particularly that you're excited about, that you've got projects going on that you want to get some eyes and ears on?
Just check out the podcast, you guys, Central Valley Podcast. Listen to a few episodes. Go back as far as you want. You know what I mean? It progressively gets better. That's what I always tell people. But like, yeah, just support the podcast, support the Instagram account at Central Valley Podcast. Just trying to be a dude that promotes the area and just a relatable person that is just like your neighborhood friend. You know what I mean? That's like my end goal, is just like someone relatable that's on the internet that the average person can relate to. You know what I mean? Yeah. So just go check us out, Central Valley Podcast. Check out our Instagram. We got tons of funny skits and promos that we do. And, you know, that's all I got. You know, I just appreciate that you giving me this time, man. It's cool connecting with other podcasters. You actually commented when I'm like, what else do you guys want to see this season? You're like, collaborations with other podcasters. Yeah. And I never saw your message because it went to my hidden request that I didn't know existed.
I just found out about that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had like, and it only saves like 4 weeks or something like that. And I literally had like 50 unread messages, and I was like, oh shit, this exists. Like,
I think if you've never sent, like, you didn't have a dialogue with that, it just automatically went.
It goes there. Yeah, exactly. So, but then some random ones go to my request. You know what I mean? So I don't know how it works, but yeah, I'm glad that. And like the thing I love is that I love seeing other podcasters in the area. I love seeing other people, like, because maybe their whole thing isn't promoting the Central Valley, but like you're creative in the Central Valley. You are doing something for the Central Valley. You're pushing the needle in a one way or another, and you got to connect with cool people and kind of see how each experience of different people, how much you can relate to it, the differences, and how much you can benefit from it. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you giving me the time to talk. You know what I mean? Like people think, like, I feel like sometimes people, like, it's cool because I'll be rocking around more sets. Someone's like, oh, Central Valley Podcast. You know what I mean? And it's cool meeting people, talking to them. But it's even cooler just sitting down and having like a real conversation with somebody that we don't get to have that often.
Yeah, man, the pleasure's all mine. You know, you're doing the thing. You're promoting the Central Valley and promoting other creatives, and yeah, I appreciate that. It's all love, and you know, I've been a fan, and I'm going to continue to be a fan. So anybody else that, you know, I would highly recommend it. CVP is the MVP. So
there we go. Thank you, man. Thank you. Well, Ishmael, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Micah.
But boom.
Dude.
You